Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. In this video it's going to be part 1 of a trilogy I have lined up all surrounding the Dodge Viper on all 3 generations to feature within Gran Turismo 7. And we're going to start off here with what is probably the most iconic non-Japanese car to ever feature within Gran Turismo games. To start off with, we're going to look at the second generation of Dodge Viper, mainly this one here, the 2002 Dodge Viper GTS. Now, before I go into why I think this car is such an icon, let's have a look at the 2 ways you can go ahead and pick this one up. You can either pick it up from the used car dealership, which will kind of rotate in and out. This will give you a bit of a cheaper version with some mileage on it. The current one is 106,900 credits, only saving you a slight bit of money compared to picking up a brand new one from the Dodge dealership for 120,000 credits. Now, they are identically the same, there is no difference between them. However, one will, like I said, have some miles on it and one won't. When it comes to this generation of Viper, it isn't hard to see how many recreations of those Le Mans liveries are actually in the game, as well as some other very classic race liveries. The Oreca from 2000, very infamous for its GT3 appearance, or even the Oreca from 1999 with its striking blue, red and white livery, as well as some of the JGTC liveries also making an appearance. People just seem to gravitate to making iconic liveries for this car. Not only were they real world, they were also very heavily featured within the Gran Turismo games of the past. So eventually I will move on to talk about the car in its GT7 terms. However, I do feel this car definitely needs more look into the history and just how it became such a Gran Turismo icon. Now, the model here, I did say, is a second generation, and a lot of people do assume that the generation before this and this generation here that ran all the way up to 2002 are the exact same vehicle. However, they are certainly classed as 2 different generations. Now, this one here, I believe, was introduced in 1996, I want to say, and ran all the way up till 2002, with the generation before that being from around 91 all the way up to 95/96 when the coupe was introduced. Now, there is a few key differences between Gen 1 and Gen 2, mainly that the sort of convertible styling is completely gone in place of a couped version, which was very heavily stylized on the Shelby Daytona and produced one of the best looking cars ever out of America. Also, the side tailpipes that you will famously see on the previous versions are gone in place of a dual one that kind of leaves the rear exit. Overall, this is probably the most iconic version of the Dodge Viper ever made. So how did a car straight out of America become one of Gran Turismo's most iconic non-Japanese car, if not the most iconic itself? Well, it's not hard to really notice. If you ever played Gran Turismo 1, 2 or 3, this car was massively featured within the game's introductions, almost always showing off its striped variant, looking absolutely striking and brutish, as well as featuring very much in the gameplay. In terms of the AI, in terms of license tests, it was all there and all on show, exposing you to the Dodge Viper and its brutish looks and power almost instantly in the early games, as well as also being a very affordable and very fast car within those early games, meaning that it was one of the cars that a lot of people would just instantly gravitate to, considering its affordability and the amount of performance this thing put out for pretty much all of the game. For me personally, this became an absolute dream car for me. This was the first ever car I just wanted to own when I was older. Obviously, young me looked at the body lines and the way it looked and the way it sounded and just absolutely fell in love with this car. Like I said, the one featured in GT1, well, that is, I believe, a 97 model. Then we also have the 99 GTS, I believe, which featured very prominently in GT2, as well as this one in some of the later games, obviously being in the more HD generation, or should I say next generation after the PS2 and all that likes. Now obviously previously we had a lot of the 99 Viper, and essentially it is the same car in terms of its style, meaning that because it never really changed and it was always shown off in either red and white stripes or blue and white stripes, or sometimes either silver and blue stripes, it became imprinted on the minds of many Gran Turismo players, myself included. Like I said, this was a dream car for me when I was a kid. I absolutely loved the look of it, and I wanted one when I was older. Now obviously the talk of these being unreliable and learning more about these cars as I grew up kind of turned me away from them. However, for me it is still a massive icon, not only of gaming but the real world. This felt like a proper brutish powerful car, and that is essentially what the Dodge Viper is. So since players were so exposed to this car, in all honesty, that's why I think this thing became such an icon, especially in terms of it being a non-Japanese iconic car within the games. Yes, we had Skylines, yes, we had the likes of, you know, the Honda NSX and the Supras, all in all of the games being shown off in amazing details back then, but we also had this straight out of America, the Dodge Viper GTS. So yes, in terms of modern day standards, this car is very much outdated, with the Dodge Viper going on to many more different generations since, including a updated version only a year later that ran, I believe, up until around about 2008, before it was then preceded by a pretty much better version of that version all the way up to 2010. After that, then we had probably the most dominant Dodge Viper, apart from obviously its older, I guess, grandfather at this point, being the GTS, obviously kind of reining back those records and such for Dodge in the later years before it sees production, and that honestly makes it even more iconic. That V10 sound, it never changed, and it probably wouldn't work in today's market, mainly because of the types of, you know, I guess regulations surrounding cars, the fact that they want to kill off cars that were as brutal and savage as the Dodge Viper. So no, whilst I probably would never ever want it to come back if it didn't have that V10 growl, it just makes it a very special model of car. But let's focus on the performance of the Viper GTS from 2002 within the form of Gran Turismo 7. How is it really? Well, like I mentioned, it's pretty much an outdated fossil of its time. It's not really that performance heavy anymore. It's really not as impressive as it once was within those earlier titles. It is very much outdated, and the newer Dodge Vipers do things better. But like I said, just due to its styling and its actual status within Gran Turismo as being a pretty, you know, cemented icon of the series, I'm happy to see this car in game. In terms of its performance, it is still definitely no slouch. It will accelerate to some ridiculous speeds, as well as hitting some absolutely ridiculous top speeds as well, if given the chance to do so. In terms of its gears, they are very long. There is no denying that. The gear ratios on the stock version of the Dodge Viper are absolutely insane. They feel like they go on for an eternity, and this is something that carried on throughout all of the generations. They all feel like they have very long gears. In terms of its turning performance, well, it's not as brutish as it once was. I honestly expected it to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more uncontrollable. However, the GTS from 2002, which you're seeing here, actually felt better around the track than, well, pretty much any of the other Dodge Vipers, at least in its standard form. It really did stand out and actually stand the test of time in that sense. In terms of the brakes though, that is really where it is let down. It's really not that good. These are basically putting cardboard for brakes, and, you know, trying to stop this thing when it's going at some crazy speeds really isn't that easy. So yes, the GTS, or second generation Dodge Viper GTS, has lost some of that brutish charm, and it doesn't feel as aggressive, and it doesn't feel as up to par in terms of its performance. This will always be a cemented Gran Turismo icon, and I am just happy to see it in this game. It was great kind of getting those memories back of seeing this thing, you know, drive across the bridge at Grand Valley on the intros, or see its race form in the red Orica livery within Gran Turismo 3. Yes, this car brings back a ton of memories for me, and, well, yes, I still want one. This is a great time. So let's go and see how this car stacks up against a bunch of more modern counterparts. Well, in terms of the category that this falls in, it falls in the 600 pp category, and it does outperform a few notable cars, mainly being the Nissan GT-R Nismo R32 by a decent margin, and it isn't that far off a Porsche 959 from 1987. Overall, this had decent one-lap pace here at the Nordschleife. But I wouldn't be doing this car justice without showing off this. Now, most of you will probably know this car from Gran Turismo 2. This is one of the Orica livery cars. Mainly the one you're seeing here is the 1999 version with that very striking blue, red and white livery. Almost cemented in your mind as a distant memory. Yes, I have tried to bring this car back, and yes, it is as brutish as you ever remember it. This is the Dodge Viper GTS in its best form. Now, honestly, the Dodge Viper GTS was no slouch in terms of the racetrack, and it does carry on very well over to Gran Turismo 7. So we're going to hit up the high speed ring in what is one of the best ever laps I've ever had round here. In terms of pace, grip and just outright fun, the Brutus V10 monster, that is the Dodge Viper GTS, absolutely throttled it round here. I was very much impressed, only really being let down by its brakes once again. Apart from that, this thing actually gripped insanely well. Obviously we do run them fully upgraded here on the softest possible compound of tyre, but I was just finding myself having an absolute blast. And in all honesty, if you want a brutal American car to go and whip around some of these tracks in VR or just have fun with a car in general within GT7, then look no further than the Viper GTS from 2002. This is certainly one of the most on the edge laps I've ever had, and it certainly felt like overall the fastest. So it'll be interesting to see where this car actually stacks up. So is it worth upgrading? Absolutely. It just makes this car even more iconic that they didn't forget just how ridiculous this thing is and just how much potential, especially on track, that the Viper GTS had in race form. So there we go. That is a lap completed. We're going to do some celebratory donuts and a burnout to finish off the footage of the Viper GTS. But we do need to go and have a look where this thing actually placed in terms of its overall performance. And, well, it wasn't too shabby at all. It comes overall third place, faster than an F-Type Jag, faster than a GT-R Nismo when fully tuned, by a decent margin, and only just missing out and being faster than a Maserati MC20, 18 years newer than itself. This thing is an absolute rocket ship and a massive blast. So there we have it, one of the big icons of the Gran Turismo series, the Dodge Viper GTS, in its second generation form, or the coupe. An absolute icon, a car that stood the test of time, and a car that I will always want until the day I die, thanks to this series. So there we go. This is going to be part 1 of 3 of a trilogy where we look through all of the generations that are featured within GT7. So next up will be the SRT10, or the third generation Dodge Viper, the one previous to its facelift that only ran for a couple of years. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I cannot wait to tune in and see you guys in the next video. I'll see you later on, guys. Take care. Peace.